Johnny Ray, what's the game of the week this week?
It's Age of Empires 2 HD. Age of Empires 2 Age of Kings was an old game. Came out in 1999.
This is an old game they're re-releasing?
Yeah, it was another gift from Super Sun Shady.
Awesome.
He had given me he had sent me FTL, Faster Than Light, which I don't know. I talked about that with Mark and Daryl.
Right, I took the Tuesday night off last week.
Yeah, but I think you were sitting over here in the chair. Anyway, so Age of Empires 2 Age of Kings HD.
So they've updated it for it's 15 years later.
There were a lot of complaints when Age of Empires 2 HD came out because there were no high-res textures. It kind of looks like a game from 1999. And the gameplay wasn't updated really at all. So it's the same game. And it's a fun game. It's a real-time strategy. Is this a favorite
of yours in the past, or is this your first time playing it?
This is my first time playing it.
Okay.
And it's an RTS like your StarCraft or your Warcraft, but it's sort of in a historical milieu as best they can put it. And you're taking on the role of I've only gone through the tutorial, and I was playing as the Scots as against the English.
They're about to declare independence if all goes well next month.
Yeah, but they lost the first two rounds.
Yeah, and
didn't go well.
Which the game did not do a very good job of teaching me, because by the time the tutorial was over, I thought that Scotland had won that engagement and it had won the Battle of Falkirk, but they did not.
Yeah, they would really like that to be true.
Johnny Ray, you're telling us about Age of Empires 2 HD.
Right.
This is a remake of an old 1999 game?
Exactly.
Okay.
And I had said before that there were no high-res textures. There are no HD textures. So though it is the HD edition, it's certainly not all HD. It looks like a game from that era. It's fun to play for me because, well...
Is it one of those things, before you go on, is it one of those things where... the game back in the day had the resolution that it had, but computers only could show so much on screen. So do you see more on the screen? It's just the game's using the same old textures from back in the day? Is that kind of how they did it?
Unfortunately, I can't compare it to how it was back in the day because I didn't play it then. What you say sounds like it could certainly be the case.
Gotcha.
So
you haven't been blown away by the graphics prowess of the new game?
No, but it doesn't offend me either. It's fine to look at.
Are you having fun with it?
I'm having fun with it so far. This is a sort of a game that appeals to me. I love these real-time strategy games. Basically, Mark, you're sort of like building a base, which and you're advancing your people, be they the Scots or the French under Joan of Arc, the Saracens under Saladin, or the Mongols.
We don't have actually contemporary empires here. You just sort of, they take them out of time and toss them.
They play kind of fast and loose with the real history.
I mean, if you're going to be the Scots, you don't want to. You're going to want you're going to want Wallace. You're going to want Rob Roy. Those are the people you're going to want to be leading you. If you're going to be the French, you're going to want Joan of Arc. You're going to want Vercingetorix. That's who I'm going for. Vercingetorix. If you're going to play Native Americans, you want Tecumseh. I mean, you don't want to settle for second best when it comes to these folks.
If you want to be the Celts and what you said, then Civ is the game for you.
Okay. Vercingetorix. Is that what you're saying? Okay.
I'm gonna keep going with because I want to play as the Saracens. I read some account of the Crusades a long time ago, and this romantic Arab by the name of Saladin has always intrigued me. So I'm looking forward to getting through that. But the gameplay is just like it was back in 1999. Really, I have to share what a reviewer has written about this game.
Okay.
He said there is absolutely no reason to trade money like that, talking about the price, and I don't know what the price was because it was gifted to me. I think it's probably about $10, but in 2013 it was more. It was first re-released, but he said there's no reason to trade money like that for a game like this, for a moldy time capsule that will likely mar your memories of the original. This time, history needs to be left to rest. But having quoted that, and having said that, I must say that I'm enjoying it.
I think that it's nice that older games are sort of experiencing a resurgence. You've got the like the PlayStation and the Xbox. They have services where you can literally buy classic games for like a Nintendo emulator and play them on your system, as I understand it, which I think is a cool thing.
Yeah. A lot of people are doing that these days. It's real popular.
It breathes new life into these older titles, allows people from newer generations to introduce older generations, or rather, people from older generations to introduce newer generations to classic games without them having to have an old working Nintendo sitting in the garage or something like that, where you can, just play them on the existing game systems. I think that's a cool thing. Now, is this for Windows or is it for phones? I missed the operating system on this. Age of Empires 2 HD.
It's had many iterations, including Nintendo DS. This is the version I have is on Steam, so it's for my PC. But conceivably could also be on Mac and Linux.
So I've got a game of the week, Johnny Ray. This one is Night Trap, a classic Sega CD game from back in the early 1990s.
Sounds scary.
It's one of the most infamous games of all time. It was Night Trap and Mortal Kombat were the two games in the early 90s that sort of sparked this national discussion about a video game rating system. Congress held sessions about this, and they were going to force a rating system on the video game industry if they didn't voluntarily come up with one on their own. And it was this game, Night Trap, was one of the two main offenders. It was supposed to be this really violent game, which was really like a kind of a hokey B movie. Essentially, Night Trap was one of the sort of infamous what's called full motion video games. Essentially, you were interacting with a movie, and as you might imagine, it is relatively difficult to make a game around the idea of an interactive movie because there are only so many things that you can do with live video versus animation in a video game.
Yeah, there was a time mark in the late 90s where they were just beginning to be able to incorporate video into software applications.
Right, and this was like so seen as the new thing for video games back then. It turned out it didn't work out very well in the long run, and most of the games were horrible. But Night Trap, has that attraction of it being a kind of a piece of history. That it was one of the two games that spurned this whole discussion about video game ratings.
I'm trying to think of this video game that I played in the arcades. Now, this one was a cartoon.
Dragon's Lair. Where
it sounds like it's Dragon's Lair. It was a cartoon.
Dragon's Lair. So very similar in concept to Dragon's Lair was run actually off of a laser disc. And that it had very high quality animation. Like Don Bluth, I think, was the animator behind that.
It was neat, but it was kind of catchy. Like you do something at a certain time.
It was very button press. Like you had to react before something happened on screen, and it was very hard. Actually, the game was very difficult, a real quarter cruncher. Night Trap, not quite the same. It wasn't designed for arcades, but sort of a similar idea where it's playing video tracks and you have to do certain things. In this case, trap vampires and save young ladies from being trapped in this house, which is overrun by vampires.
What did the young ladies look like?
Sort of older teen, young 20s females having essentially a slumber party at this creepy vampire house thing. And it was all like this B-movie quality, kind of really hokey and fun to watch. Well, anyway, the original creators of that game are back. They've got all the old footage. It was shot in 35 millimeter in the 1980s for an old defunct video game system, and they want to put it out in HD quality, and they're doing a Kickstarter campaign for this. You can go to nighttraprevamped.com. They're looking to raise $300,000 in the next 21 days, and they're only at about 10% at this point. So whether it'll actually come back or not still remains to be seen, but they are trying to bring this classic, horrible game back to life. And nighttraprevamped.com is the site.
There was a Wing Commander game that I loved.
With all the live video in it?
That had
with Mark Hamill
and the guy who played Biff.
We are out of time for tonight, but we can do more video game stuff on next Tuesday with Johnny Ray's Game of the Week. This week's Game of the Week, Age of Empires 2 HD from Johnny Ray. There's more coming up tomorrow night. We'll see you online in the meantime at freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.